Ready? Hi, everybody. This is Al. We're in Philadelphia. Where else would we be? Well, we could be somewhere else, but we're not. We're in Philadelphia, and the gang is here, and I'm really glad to see them. Ready? Dave Poplar has joined us in the Google Hangouts. Hello.
Hi,
good morning,
everybody.
Dave.
This is
Al. We're in Philadelphia. Where else would we be? Well, we could be somewhere else, but we're not. We're in Philadelphia, and the gang is here, and I'm really glad to see them.
Ready?
Dave Poplar has joined us in the Google Hangouts. Hello.
Hi,
good morning,
everybody.
Dave.
This is Al. We're
If you're playing it on Twitter.
I'm playing it on Twitter? No, I'm not. Oh, I'm playing the webcast. Oh, I'm so sorry. Everybody, it's not a fault of Chris or Zach. Anna's hiding her face. I, on my laptop, which is connected to the audio, was playing the stream, so I apologize. We're here. This is us. We're here. Dave Poplar, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Angie, I think you're with us. Angie, are you there? Okay, I think Angie's out for a second, and we'll get her back, we hope. Molly O'Neill, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm sleepy.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I'm looking at the clock. It's never mind. I'm not going to ask. Carlos.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. You ready for a little New York school fun here?
Absolutely.
Lily Applebaum, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
Great. Lily pronounced herself as having too much baseball talk around her.
That's true.
So we're not going to say anything about baseball because if we do, Eric is going to cry, and we don't want to see Eric cry. Julia Block, good morning.
I was hoping we could talk about baseball today.
Oh.
No, Julia, you're killing me.
Kansas City
I want to talk
person?
about the Blue Jays. They're not doing well, but I thought we
They're
could talk
not
about
doing
them
well.
anyway.
That is correct. They have many months to think about it. They're doing well in golf. Okay. Andrea is at the table today.
Hey, Al.
Good morning. And we have, among others, we have Brian and Mandana. Mandana's here from New York. And Andrea here at the table, and Michael and CJ, and Susan, and Eric. And we're really very happy about it all. And Anna Strong. Good morning, Anna.
Hey, everybody.
And Zach and Chris. So a couple of real quick announcements, then we can get right to the fun. The second caller, not the first, but the second caller, will be getting a copy of Charles Bernstein's book, Recalculating, which is really good. We have one poem by Bernstein in chapter 9.1 next week. It's called In a Restless World Like This Is. So this book, which is his most recent book of poems, published by the University of Chicago, is yours. And inside the book will be a very valuable broadside. Julia Block's broadside, one of a kind, printed here by hand at our press, and it's called The Byronic Woman.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a poem.
Wow.
All right. So I guess, Mandana, did you come the furthest today?
That's kind of sad, but I guess so.
She came the furthest. Not that sad. I think anybody, all in favor of giving Mandana the Julia Block broadside, raise your hand. Okay, come and get it. You got it. You cannot go home. All right, so we've got a call already, not the second caller, but the first caller. The second caller gets the... Okay, just a couple of announcements. First of all, the amazing poet Peter Cole is coming here today from New Haven, Connecticut via Jerusalem, and he is going to give a reading right in this room at 6:30 p.m. tonight, Philly time, obviously. And anyone who wants to watch Peter Cole give a reading, you can go to the Kelly Writers House site, and on that page look for KWH-TV. That's a different stream from the one we have here. Daylight savings time is this coming weekend. Here in the United States, we will be putting the clocks back an hour at 2 a.m. All you have to do is think about this. Go to the web, type in Philadelphia time, and you can always at any time see what time it is here. At 9 a.m. on Sunday, the O'Hara essays are due 9 a.m. Sunday. I recommend that you try to get it in on Saturday because we're all confused about the time change. Right?
Yeah.
Just get it on
Saturday.
Saturday.
Our
We
whole
still don't
lives. I have no
understand
idea.
it.
Like, are we going on? Are we
Yeah.
going off? I
And there
still
are
have no idea.
people all over the world who do different time changes at different times, different amount of time change. There's people who go on to a half-hour thing. don't ask me why anybody would do that. That sounds confusing. The best thing is go to the web and look at Philadelphia time, because Philadelphia must be, at least for ModPo, the standard time. Anyway, I also got in the mail a book by Ina Schroeders-Zeters. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing your name, Ina, and I'm sorry. I believe she is from the Netherlands, and she's been very active. And this is a book of poems by her, and I'm really excited. It's called Roads, Book 1, and I'm excited to read it. So thank you, Ina, and thanks to all the ModPo poets who are out there who are active and say they're inspired by what we're doing together. Okay, we have a phone call. We have some voicemails. We have a Twitter feed raging. We have, I don't know if it's raging. Is it raging? We have, raging. So here's Colleen. Colleen says, checklist. ModPo Live checklist, phone, Apple. I assume that's a fruit, not a computer. Coke, that's capital C, Apple small a. Straw?
For the Coke.
For the Coke. God, I'm Mr. Juxtaposition this week. My parataxis, I didn't see the connection. Poems, laptop, questions, journal, pen, phone number, me, myself, and I. Forenoon today, Colleen in Toronto.
Well, guess who's on the phone?
Who's on the phone?
It's Colleen in Toronto.
Colleen, she's got that phone number. All right, put her on, please. Good morning, Colleen.
Good morning, Al and everybody.
Hello, you've got your checklist, which included the phone number.
I know, but I forgot the Apple.
Wait a minute, so you were bullshitting us? You put the Apple on the list, but you didn't actually...
We're out.
We're out. And you didn't have
Someone
enough
must
time to
have
go to the
eaten it,
store.
and they were delicious.
And they were delicious, so sweet, so cold. You're the first caller, not the second, so you don't get the Bernstein book.
That's okay, I'll share.
You'll share, okay. Chris, can you bring her up just a little bit? All right, Colleen, you have a question, and in your tweet it was question with an S in parentheses, but if you have two questions, please constrain yourself and ask one.
Okay. I have an observation followed by a question.
Yes.
I see themes of walking and movement in the words this week.
Yes.
But it's interesting in terms of the form, especially in a couple of the poems, which seems to be more prose-like. For example, The Day Lady Died, that seems to look a bit more like an editorial piece, and then the instruction manual looks a lot more like prose. Mm-hmm. But we can see movement and walking in the words in the poem. We can also see it in some trees as well, but it just in the content to me. So there's this feeling of movement along with the poets as they tell us their thoughts. And I also read it in Just Walking Around, but that's in ModPo Plus.
Just Walking Around is probably the great instance of what you're talking about, and we might or might not talk about it. It's such a great poem.
Okay.
What a great question. Colleen, may I ask, if you don't have to give this information out because you're entitled to whatever privacy you want. For all we know, your name isn't Colleen Knight, and that's totally fine. But what do you do? You know, what's your regular... Yeah, what do you do? What's your field? What are your interests?
I actually used to work in arts and entertainment and higher education, and now I work full-time from home as a poet.
Wow. The first part of that I missed, something about entertainment.
Yeah, I used to work in arts and entertainment.
Arts and entertainment. Great, and then higher education. That was just such a great observation. I just want to say that, in my opinion, and I'm sure everyone here. Great observation about these poems. So why don't you stay on the line, and we'll get a few responses. We'll add to this observation of yours, and then we'll come back to you to see if you have a comment on the comments. So, Lily, does that seem right, that there's a lot of movement and walking around, and how does it relate to the lineation and the look of the... That's the part that I really like that Colleen said.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said, Colleen. I think that if the type of walking is more the walking around, though, not walking from one place to another. It's like O'Hara saying, in A Step Away from Them, okay, I have 1 hour for my lunch break. What can I observe and walk around and see? But not so much like a beat type of thing, like I'm going to just walk until I get to California or whatever. I'm going to walk and leave everything behind. It's kind of like I'm going to aimlessly, quote unquote, walk around, but prove that there's so much meaning in that theoretically aimless walking that still kind of fits into my regular day-to-day stuff.
And what's the going to Dave Poplar on this, okay, Dave? What's the relationship between the idea of walking around, which is partly a bohemian impulse in the case of Ashbury, and O'Hara, you know, the impulse of someone who's in a job but really would prefer to wander, to be a flaneur, right? Does anybody want to define? Chris, can you bring my personal mic down a little bit? Does anybody want to define flaneur in a way that fits with modernism and so forth? Julia Block?
Yeah, we usually think of the flaneur as the figure who does a lot of walking around and wandering without a destination in mind, but for the sake of wandering and observing the city, especially exploring the city.
Right, it's a specific connotation of urban walking around, and it's a modern figure partly because of the way retail spaces work at streetscape in the cities, because the way to walk around, it's not true with big box, you know, new forms of capitalism where you drive somewhere and then you walk around. That would be a mall. I'm sure it counts as walking around. I'm sure there's a mall suburban version of the Ashbury O'Hara lunch poems, but this is more about stores and people and a certain social density that allows chance encounters, right?
Right, and it's not aimless in the sense of, you know, having no purpose at all, but it's necessarily associative because you get to one place and then you move to the next place and then you move to the next.
So Dave Poplar, can you help us connect this week's thematics, the themes this week of wandering and walking and lunch breaks and the poetics?
Well, it's funny, just before I address that specifically, what you mentioned before about being in an urban environment, I find the walking around concept so inextricably linked with New York City itself. It seems like New York City is such an important part of this, and the walking is really just exploration and seeing what we can do with language and everything and taking it all in. And New York City seems to just foist that upon you. There's so much in New York, and it's so funny how O'Hara name drops with all these specific names. We were talking about this a little bit in my office hours last night. So in a sense, it may seem like he's showing off, but in a sense, he's just echoing and reflecting his environment where it's so multicultural, it's so diverse, and there's so much there to take in. And he's just walking around, exploring it, not just the landscape, but he's exploring language, he's exploring just communication by doing that.
And there's something else here, and I'll look around to see who would like to respond to this. When John Ashbery, one of the times he recited, performed the poem Just Walking Around, when he said it in his John Ashbery somewhat laconic style of introducing poems, very monotone, he said the title, he just said, I'm going to read a poem, just walking around. Everybody laughed. His friends and people who know the Ashbury mode laughed. They laughed because that's so John that he would make a poem out of just walking around. Can someone say what just? It's a powerful word. What does just mean there? Anna Strong, Andrea? Just walking around. What does just mean, literally?
It's kind of like a limitation in a way. And it's like kind of almost like a diminutive, like, oh, I'm just here, you know, I'm just wondering, you know, it kind of means to like decrease some kind of impact. So to say that he's just walking around is to kind of like diminish what he's really doing, but he's doing so much more than just walking around.
Andrea?
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of this, you know, this byproduct, this kind of throwaway thing. And also in Colleen's question, I thought, yeah, that's really interesting that, you know, walking around, it's such an active thing, but he turns it into this kind of passive, he's taking it in. It's not the action of him going through the world, it's the observing what's going on around him and getting the feel of the city and all of that that's really making the action part of it. So when he says just, he is, like Anna said, diminishing kind of the power of it, but it's also sort of, I think, ironic in the way that he's saying it, because nothing about what he's saying is just.
So, thank you both, Anna and Andrea. Dave actually didn't answer the main part of the question. So what you did was great, Dave, but the main part of the question was connected to the poetics of this week. So this idea of, maybe Julia, you can take a stab at this, the idea of thematic wandering, movement, even hard times. They go to California. The lunch poems of O'Hara, he's walking around, just walking around. Pretty much all of them have that. 3 pages by Berrigan. Guest, Barbara Guest's 20, really is a kind of Spain, New York, Spain, New York. She's just sort of really associating. And how does that bear out in the poetics, in the way the thinking about poetry?
I think there's a lot in that. In the one line by Ashbery, the longest way is the most efficient way.
Yeah.
And of course, that line begins with the word that, so it's already a proposition. Let's assume that the longest way is the most efficient way. And so when we think of efficiency, we think of quickness and we think of saving time and cutting corners. But in fact, the most efficient way into this mode of experience, into this poetics, is taking the long way around, taking the long wandering associative way around. And there's actually a tremendous amount of compactness and efficiency in poems that look like they're really digressive, really associative, and even quote-unquote random in their choices.
Thank you. That's great. Colleen, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Great. I'm going to, after I make one other observation, I'm going to invite you to say anything else that you want to add to this, but it was a great topic. The thing I want to add is a little preview of next week. So next week we enter Chapter 9, which is 3 weeks of three different of many possible takes on the poetry. I don't think we could quite call it any more contemporary, but the setup of contemporary poetry. 3 different takes on that. One being the so-called language poetry, which is tries to push the New York school style juxtaposition and the William Stein juxtaposition to an extreme through the use of a lot of parataxis. The second is chance operations, 9.2, and then 9.3 is a certain amount of uncreative use of the ambient language around us with various strategies. But what's going to happen in 9.1, which is week 8, is you're going to get a poem like In a Restless World Like This Is, which is a post-9/11 poem by Charles Bernstein, and it is about walking around New York, and it's about walking around New York after the ground, and the philosophical ground and the literal ground seems to have been taken out from under us. And what do you do when you're the flaneur after destruction? And it uses that occasion to push the poetics of digression and parataxis, and that poem doesn't get anywhere at all, and it's the ultimate form of just walking around post-disaster, just walking around post-trauma. Colleen, would you say anything else? And then we're going to get off so that we can move on to other questions, but this was great. So, final thought?
My final thought is I just really appreciate the urban sense of walking around, not necessarily going from point A to point B, but taking the long way around it, but actually getting somewhere in the end. And I love that through the exploration of the language.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting somewhere. We all have an arc of our behavior, an arc of our lives, and we like to think of it as narrative, right? That's a traditional mode. What ModPo is about, what modern poetry is about, among other forms of modern art, is creating an arc that's actually not predictable, that's not one end of the rainbow to the pot of gold and the other, that's not A to Z, that's not in order, but actually bears out the accidental quality of the way our lives, our careers, our families act. Can we get the portable mic to Eric? I'm going to say goodbye to Colleen. Thank you, Colleen, so much for calling.
You.
Talk to you soon. Get some apples. 215-573-9752. Eric, a quick additional comment on this, because I want to get on to different topics.
I was thinking about the poetics of life, and how when you're always trying to get somewhere and to do something,
yes,
what you often end up missing out on when you live your life in that mode,
yes,
is the community, the friendships that form, because you're willing to allow free play and openness. And so much of the great poetry of the 20th century in America happens in community, in communities of friendship and of understanding and of critiquing and support.
Yeah. So relevant to the New York school, because so many of them, this was really a gang of people and they liked each other. So, Andrew, I want to thank you for sitting at the table. Caroline, you're going to go to that end. Can we give Andrea a hand? We're going to take a phone call, but would you give the portable mic to Ron? He didn't know this was going to happen. Can you get the camera on? I don't want you to do anything, Ron, but be introduced, because we're going to be studying you next week. It happens, ModPo people around the world and in the room, it happens that one of the poets that we're studying, in fact, one of the few poets in ModPo who gets 2 poems. How the hell did that happen, Ron?
Graft.
Did you say graft?
Graft. It works for Donald Trump, who also is a Penn grad.
Who is also a Penn grad. You are a meanie. You're just... Anyway, Ron Silliman, one of the most generous people that any of us knows, is here. He happens to be in the room. But next week in Chapter 9.1, we're going to be studying the so-called language poets, and Ron is one of that generation, one of that group. And so you're going to be reading 2 poems by him. One is called Albany. The other is called Bart. There are interviews with Ron. Actually, we've seen Ron interviewed throughout. And hello, Ron.
Hi. It's great to be part of ModPo, and because I have 2 poems as part of ModPo, there's now a Chilean edition of Bart and a French edition of Albany.
Whoa!
So thank you.
No, can you just fill it in a little? We don't want you to tell the whole story, but the Chilean one.
The Chilean one, it's translated by Carlos Soto-Roman,
right,
and is published in Chile, where, of course, they're just dying to know what it's like to ride the rapid transit systems of the Bay Area. And the French translation of Albany is by Martin Rochette. And again, you know, the folks in France really want to know what it's like to grow up in the suburb of Berkeley.
Yeah, that's right. There's different motivations for everybody. The number of Chilean ModPoers over the years has been significant, and I'm just, pleased by that. Do you want? We're going to go to a phone call, but would you just say something without rehearsal, because you just showed up? A preview of next week for people who are beginning to be trepidatious about all this so-called difficult poetry that you and your pals wrote?
Well, often people say that the poetry is difficult because it's anti-narrative, but in fact, actually, every single sentence is a narrative, and I would characterize it more as sort of hyper-narrative rather than anti-narrative.
Nice.
And once you get beyond that stumbling block, it's absolutely no harder than Gregory Corso.
Wow. Can we give Ron Silliman a big hand for joining us? Thank you, Ron. That's so much fun. Okay, we have someone on the phone, and the person on the phone, the second caller, it's like a radio show, Ron. The second caller gets a copy of Charles Bernstein's Recalculating. So who is, and I even get that on the screen again, Recalculating, University of Chicago Press.
Well,
Okay,
I
who is
personally can think of no better person to give this book to. It's T. De Los Reyes.
T,
Yay.
calling from Manila at
so late
after midnight. T, are you on?
Hi, guys.
Hey, T. Chris Martin's going to do some magic to make your voice work, but if you would speak loudly and clearly, that would be great.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yes, it is better. So, no hurricanes this season so far?
We just had one a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago. We're pretty good.
I'm glad you're there and safe. So, T, for those who don't know, has been associated with ModPo from the very beginning. She's a community TA, and she's awake when the rest of us are sleeping. Because she is in. You're not in Manila. You're in Quezon City. You're in Quezon City, right?
It's part of Manila, yes.
In any case, you are in the Philippines and a long way from us, and we're just so grateful. You do so much. You support us on the technical side, and you always have supportive things to say. Do you want to say something to people, the ModPo people out there, or do you want to just get right to a question or comment?
No, actually, I don't have any questions. I just want to say hi to everyone, and yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well, who wants to say hello to T? Julia?
Hey, T. Just a little bit earlier, we were looking at your Twitter feed, and I literally said T is the smartest person in the world. So I'm glad to hear your voice.
You should run for president,
I'm glad to
T.
hear all your voices too.
Yeah.
Well, T, thanks for calling.
This is my favorite week, so I'm really glad I got to be here for the live webcast.
That's great. It's your favorite week. Why?
I think there's just something about the New York School of Poets that speaks to me. The way they use language to convey intimacy and depth to the everyday. I think it's one of the things that appeals to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, T. And make sure that Anna has your mailing address. It may take a while for the book to arrive, but we're Mandana is going to get on a boat right now and get started. Thank you, T.
It's all good. It's so nice to
Get
see
to
you guys
sleep
on
sometime
camera.
tonight. Yeah.
Bye, T.
Bye, T. Will you can someone get Mandana the microphone? Because whatever the next topic is, I want her to be on the spot. So you don't mind. She gives me that look. The look says, don't do that, but I really do want to. Some kind of combination of now she's giving it to me again. And here's another phone call. What the heck is going on? Meantime, Caroline has joined us. Hello, Caroline. How are you doing?
Great.
It's great to see you.
I just came from New York.
Were you walking around?
Were you just walking around?
I was not just. I was just off Amtrak, but I was walking around in Brooklyn,
That's
and then
good enough.
yeah.
Did you see the Baroness?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I saw a statue of Saint Cecilia.
Wow.
That was it.
Very cool. Anna, who's on the phone?
Nobody.
Nobody's on the phone. Okay,
Ghost.
fantastic.
It's almost
Why
Halloween.
don't
It's a
we,
ghost.
Chris or Zach, why don't we play the one of the voicemails? I would say the one from Dabney Narvaez from Reston, Virginia. This is a couple of minutes long. She says hello, and then she asks us a question about what to do with all the references, the proper noun references and other references. It's kind of a long, Zach may have edited, it's a little long version of the question, but worth waiting for. So here's Dabney from Reston, Virginia.
Hi, this is Dabney Narvaez. I'm calling in from Reston, Virginia, with both a word of thanks and also a question. I'm a 3-year ModPo vet. I got my certificate of accomplishment in 2013, and I've been continuing to participate, not quite as actively, but still very devotedly last year and this year. My husband of 43 years has gone through some very difficult health challenges, and I've been his primary caregiver through these times. And I just want you to know that ModPo has provided a wonderful, amazing world of intellectual stimulation, of creativity, of laughter, and perhaps most importantly, of learning in community. I'm just so grateful for all of that. You all are doing a wonderful job. So my question is about close reading, and it's when I'm reading a poem for the first time and I come upon a word, usually for me it's a proper noun, for which I'm just clueless. I have no associations whatsoever. I find myself really struggling on how to respond to that. I understand, thanks to ModPo, that there are many ways to make meaning in a poem as you read it or recite it. I work with my smartphone in hand and I Google the proper nouns I'm not familiar with and use those references to help me make meaning. But of course, all those references that I'm getting, from Wikipedia or whatever are sort of secondhand and not associations that come from my own life. And so I find myself sort of feeling less and less spontaneous about the very experience of making meaning from the poem and enjoying it.
That's great. Thank you, Dabney. And I know that you're going to watch this as a recording, so we're just thrilled. I remember last year and the year before interacting with you in the forums, and thank you for being part of the community. It means a lot to us that you're sticking with it, that you're a vet, as you describe it. So I would like to invite Carlos, Caroline, and Mandana just to comment briefly about this issue of what to do with words we don't get and how hard we should go outside the poem to confirm, and does it interrupt with the spontaneity? So Carlos first.
Sure. So the way I took her question was referencing also all the people who are referenced, like in Frank O'Hara's poems.
The New York School really does this a
likes
lot.
to talk about their friends or other writers. And I think that for the most part it adds to this sense of that they're writing about their time. I think the New York School poets are very grounded in their reality. And it's almost like, Colleen talked about how they read almost like editorials on the page. I think you can read them sort of like that. But one of the things I think about references is that almost like if you're looking at a portrait of somebody, it has to be a good painting before looking at and appreciating it for knowing who the person is in the painting. Mm-hmm. So if you know who the person is in the painting, it can add to the already good painting, but it has to be a good painting before that.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Caroline, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Carlos. I think I always teach my students to first read through the poem for the poem itself, and to just use your pencil and mark it up and circle even words that you don't know or references. Don't immediately look at the footnote, just like immerse yourself in the poem and then go back on a second read and look things up, because sometimes just being around the texture of the poem can help you get acquainted with how those words are being there, sometimes just as a foreign object, and maybe looking up the first time can interrupt your reading. So I think that appreciating the poem as the poem itself without going outside the poem for a first read is sometimes a good reading experience. And I also wanted to say, Dabney, that I'm going to be in Leesburg, Virginia, which is only 20 minutes from Reston, tonight through Sunday. So if you want to do a mini meetup,
that's such a nice
I
idea.
don't know if you can get away too far. We can get coffee and talk about ModPo.
Oh, Caroline, that's great.
And I'll be doing a real meetup on Saturday.
Halloween.
Halloween in Richmond, Virginia at 11. So I don't know if you'll be able to make to Richmond, but we can get coffee in Reston. And talk
that's
poetry.
really great, and we can put you directly in touch with her. So that's great. While we're going to turn to Mandana, I just want to say hi to Molly also, and I think, is Angie with us? Her computer died from the battery. She's going to try to call in. That would be great. Okay, Molly, we're going to turn to you in a second. Mandana, hello. By the way, there's a tweet. Jeremy Dixon from Wales says, "What? Mandana's there too? This is too much." Too much. You're too much.
I don't have as good an answer as the ones that have been supplied, but I almost look at it as when you visit a new country, you may not know the language, you come into the train station, you get yourself a cup of coffee, you orient yourself, and you decide how you're going to wander around the city and what you're going to see and what you're not going to see. You can't see it all. There's too much to do. It's kind of like New York. But pause when you need to pause and see what kind of landmarks you might find that seem familiar to you and sit with them for a while. But like any new city, you're not going to be able to understand it all at once.
Such a great suggestion. Thank you. That was really great. And typically prefaced by your saying, "Oh, what I'm about to say is not good," and then you pow. This is why Jeremy's all excited. Yeah, and in the New York School, this is such a great question for the New York School, because when you read O'Hara or Ashbery or really any of them, Kenneth Koch, Barbara Guest, they all drop names. They refer to names, first names, and it is really okay just to assume that they're just talking about friends. It's like overhearing in media res a conversation of a real community, and you walk into parties, you arrive in cities, in your analogy, constantly bombarded with a lot of first names, and it takes a little while before you realize who these people are, but it's okay just to hear the fact that there's a bunch of friends in a poem. A lot of people reacted very badly and negatively. How dare they drop these names? Why don't they tell us? But, the fact is that modern writing, like Henry James, you read a late James novel, and you don't even know who he's talking to once in a while. It's just like the pronouns just get dropped. That's modern life, commensurate with the sentence, which has these weird pronouns or incomplete references. Yes. So we have someone on the phone, and Molly's going to take a first crack at whatever the comment is. And who is it, Anna Strong?
It's our buddy Shannon calling.
Shannon
Yay.
Ratliff from, I believe, Texas. Am I right? Yeah. Hello, Shannon.
Hi, Al. How you do?
And I am doing fine. How is your day going so far?
My day is confused with some trees.
With some trees?
Yeah, my day is confused with some trees.
Well, that's cool. Tell us what's confusing. Molly O'Neill is up on deck here, but she knows the poem so well. In fact, she's kind of probably got it memorized. So ask your question, and we'll go to Molly.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, you guys. I'm happy to see you on my computer.
Hi, guys. This is Shannon's husband, Dale. Can I interrupt for just half a second?
Yes.
What are you doing on the phone?
Our 17th wedding anniversary. Could you wish her a happy anniversary?
Wait a minute. Say this again.
This Saturday, Halloween, is our 17th wedding anniversary.
17th. What is your name, sir?
My name is Dale.
Dale and Shannon, happy anniversary, 17 years.
Wow.
This means so much to us because you're kind of a mythic figure, Dale. And so we're going to sing happy anniversary. Is everybody ready? Okay, T, are you ready? Everybody, everywhere, all the people. Will you tweet sing happy anniversary? Okay. It's like happy birthday, except you say, what are you telling me? It's not a song. This is Shannon and Dale. Come on, get it together. You sing happy birthday, except it's happy anniversary.
All right. Never done it.
No.
Okay, here we go.
I guess
I'll give you a key. 1, 2, 3. Happy
anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, dear Shannon. Happy anniversary to you.
Woohoo! Wow. And it seems like there was some marital subterfuge involved in this phone call.
What are you doing on the phone?
What are you
You
doing?
guys, you make me have a tears.
I love you so much.
Well, we love you, and Dale been so support me through a ModPo, and he just doesn't even get poetry. God bless him.
Right now, I'm trying to work through the English Enlightenment period in 1700s London. So.
Well, that is a totally reasonable thing to be doing.
He is an unreasonable man.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to hang up.
Thank you, Dale. Happy anniversary, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's so great. This is crazy. This whole thing is crazy.
He's crazy.
It's crazy. You're crazy. I'm crazy. Well, ask about some trees, and then Molly is just so excited because she loves some trees. Ask your question.
Okay. I got to get tissue.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so on some trees, you need to go in the other room.
That's a dog. You're not talking to me, right?
I think she's talking to Dale.
Oh, you're talking to Dale. Oh,
Okay.
This is like some reality show.
I know.
I'm sorry. On
No,
some
don't
trees,
apologize. We're kidding.
These, you say, and you video record, you say the word these is the this.
It's kind of this, yeah. I
Yeah,
say that.
you say that in a video record. So, okay, then I'm thinking, okay, Emily Dickinson. And I go through, and there's these stanzas, and they all end at the sentence with CH, CH, CE, CE, all same sounds.
Wow.
But then you say in a video record, it's not a nature poem.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And then you throw in that down here where it says, a chorus of smiles, a winter morning.
Yeah.
That it's trees and emotion.
Yeah.
That the trees are the emotion, and that it's a dance of relationship.
Yeah, that's exactly what we say. We skimmed over that part, though. We do 2 videos, I think, 2 parts of that video, and we kind of skimmed over that part because I always find it hard to teach that part. So,
well,
sorry.
here's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So if the trees in this poem are just represent the being, the present, the being, you're present in the moment.
Yes, I think so.
Is that okay? So then, if that plays off of just being is amazing,
Yes.
then how then do we turn to, how then does he go from that thought then to, okay, then when we have to do everyday things, it gets all messed up and it makes us all reserved. How does that happen? How does that happen, Al?
Shannon, that's such a great question. Really, a really terrific question. I'm so glad Molly's going to answer that question. Because Molly, you want to take a first crack at it? I mean, Shannon said a lot. You can respond to part of it.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me, Shannon. Thanks. Gosh, well, my thought looking at this poem is that it's not enough just to be. It has to be that we are being together. So it's the interaction, it's the commingling of our smiles and our presence and our limbs that create what the feeling that the poem is trying to create.
But somehow that's accidental?
Yeah, right? Isn't everything accidental? Every moment is chance.
Every moment is chance.
True. What he's saying is, and he's a young person writing this, so what do young people know about true love? But he's taking a shot at it. True love is the combination of inevitability or inexorability. The trees, they are just merely there, and humans who half willingly and half accidentally wander into that kind of being and find each other there in the coincidence of seeking it and needing it. And we're glad at such moments that we don't have to make up beauty at that moment.
Right.
Because at that moment we realize that love and convergence with natural being is both an accident and the invention of beauty. And at that moment we are surrounded by the new love that we've created and by this beautiful nature. And that becomes a silence already filled with noises. That becomes a kind of language. I don't know how this kid, Ashbury, came up with this.
Yeah,
it's so long ago.
The
and
language
you know, I'm just
is
so
what throws me off, and because in a way, am I off the mark here? In a way, the language, because of the way it ends, each little line, it's almost formal.
It's very formal.
Okay.
This poem puts the lie to claims that the New York School or that the so-called New American Poets were dispensing with form. I mean, I clearly not. But what they're doing is they're questioning the way in which cause and effect and narrative straightness has been traditionally associated with traditional forms.
Okay.
These are quatrains. Wow, what I think we should do in celebration of your 17th anniversary.
Oh, you guys, he's so crazy.
Well, I mean, it just happens to be you called to ask about a young Harvard student who was, by his own admission, longing for some kind of relationship, and exploring what that might mean for him. A reticent young guy who either knew he was gay or was about to act on that, or whatever it is. You know, he's very vague. Ashbury's very vague about when all that became true for him.
Right.
But here he is writing a love poem, and it inaugurates a career, a poetic career, and it also inaugurates a relationship, not a single relationship, but a relationship that's a relationship of artifice to nature. So what we're going to do in celebration of your 17th, you and Dale, is just celebrate. Again, we're gonna recite it together, which we do sometimes here in ModPo, and we're going to celebrate arranging by chance to meet. mean, I'm in a marriage, and it's a marriage of arranging by chance. I mean, it's just one of the. They're probably all like that. How many of them are totally inevitable?
Arranged marriage.
Arranged marriages, I guess, would be arranged, not arranged by chance. It's a marriage of arranging by chance. I mean, it's just one of the. They're probably all like that. How many of them are totally inevitable? Angie? Arranged marriages, I guess, would be arranged, not arranged by chance. Angie, can you turn your sound off? Thanks, great. Okay, we were just getting an echo. But I enjoyed hearing myself a second time. We're good, sort of broke the mood. So did your thing about arranged marriages. Thanks. No, I mean, it's great. It's great. But like, pop. There you go.
Well, not all marriages are.
I know. You should study the Enlightenment with Dale.
You asked the question.
No, I'm sorry, Lily. I'm just teasing you, truly. So let's recite it. In better than singing Happy Anniversary, let's all recite it. If you don't have it in front of you, do it from memory, because this is one of those poems. All right, here we go. John Ashbery, Some Trees. Here we go. These are the ModPo people around the world. T, you better be doing it to cover your side of the world. Okay, here we go. These are amazing, each joining a neighbor as though speech were still performance, arranging by chance to meet as far this morning from the world as agreeing with it. You and I are suddenly what the trees try to tell us we are, that their merely being there means something, that soon we may touch, love, explain. And glad not to have invented such comeliness, we are surrounded. A silence already filled with noises, a canvas on which emerges a chorus of smiles, a winter morning. Placed in a puzzling light and moving, our days put on such reticence, these accents seem their own defense. Lily Applebaum and I had the privilege of being in the room when, and Anna Strong too, sorry, in the room when John Ashbery was visiting us the last time he was visiting us, and the students had been studying this, and we recited from memory a poem he had written 70 years earlier, almost 70 years earlier. And he was moved, as much as John Ashbery ever gets moved. He was moved by what, Lily? I mean...
Well, he was moved. I think he said something kind of comically deflecting the moment, like, if I had known that people were going to memorize these poems and recite them, I would have written more of them or something.
That's exactly what he said.
Something like that. But I think he was just moved by the fact that there's a lot. I think the students in the room, many of them were the same age or younger even than he was when he wrote the poem. And so I think part of it was seeing that this thing that he was feeling and somehow like struggled to put into words in the poem still resonated with that population, and maybe there's something moving in that. It's a little heartbreaking that so many people still feel so marginalized by their everyday days putting on such reticence, but moving that you can still find a community of people who want to come together and celebrate and recite the kind of poetry and thinking that he was writing and feeling at Harvard at the time.
So well put, Lily. I'm glad you were there,
Me
and
too.
Anna too. Because Anna secondarily was there. No, she's giving me the shit.
Nice.
She's giving me the Anna look. Lily's right here. Whatever marginalizes you, whether it's your interest in weird poetry or your choice of sexual identity or any kind of identity. To go away from the world that matches the distance of your disagreement with the world means that if you go to that spot, you're going to find some other people who've made the same journey. And I think, that's what Dabney and Shannon and a whole lot of other people are saying. I'm sorry, I've had 3 hours of sleep, so I'm feeling a little emotionally vulnerable. But that's what so many people in ModPo are saying. And others who join together globally through these new technologies, we have to go far away from where we are in order to meet the people who are our family, our kin. So Shannon, this is for you.
Thank you so much. I wish my questions were smarter, but I really appreciate you guys always be willing to help me understand.
Always and ever, Shannon.
And because I'm sorry my husband's crazy, but
he's not crazy. He's very rational.
It's kind of why I like him. No, he's a nut job.
The dynamic is fantastic. The idea that he would get on the phone like this in front of how many people? It's great. You're great. Stay with us.
That was an amazing question.
Yes.
And it was an amazing question. Julia Block does not say that always. So, all right, Shannon. I hate to say goodbye to you, but we're going to have to. Bye-bye.
Happy
Love
Halloween.
you.
Bye.
Take care. How are we going to follow that? What's another poem we should talk about?
We have a question about...
Oh, we have one in the... Good, save us.
Yeah, we have a question about Barbara Guest's 20.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
And it's a really great question. It's
All
from
right.
Colette, who wonders, is there any connection between Barbara Guest's poem 20 and Wallace Stevens' 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird, which we read in the second week of ModPo.
Great.
And here we are in the New York School, and we've got two poems about counting and numbers and ways.
Yep.
And I think it's a great idea to read these poems next to each other.
It's really great. So, is that blocking the camera? You didn't tell me that before. That's so great. So that's Colette Bates, I think.
Yes.
Yeah? So I would like to ask Angie and who else in the audience would like to take a crack at that? Okay, I'm not seeing any volunteers. So Angie and Lily and Julia. Oh, and Jason's here. Jason, is that something you would want to speak about? Okay, good. So let's get the mic to Jason. Let's start with Angie. The question, Angie, is guests 20, where 20 functions in a very variable, almost non-symbolic or omni-symbolic way. And I'm taking a risk that you know that poem 20 well enough to speak to it, and I'm sorry, I don't know that. And how does that compare with the choice of 13 in Stevens' 13 Ways of Looking at Blackbird? Do you want to try it, Angie?
Hi, Al. Hi, everybody. I'm just jumping in. Joined the webcast a few minutes ago. It's a really great question, and I think you could absolutely read for a relationship between Stevens and Guest here. Sorry, I have a little bit of background noise. It's garbage day. I mean, you know, I don't have a sort of clear answer, but I think, you know, certainly both poems want to think about perception, forms of perception, angles of perception. You know, in 20, you have this kind of movement through the images of the subconscious or memory or sort of like the dream worlds. You know, and it seems to me like a kind of reflection on that experience of just sort of like moving from one image of the mind to the next. And I think, you know, certainly there's a connection there, you know, just in terms of the process of the poem and the meditation of the poem on the movement of thought from image to image.
Damn, Angie, that was really great. Thank you so much. Let's turn to Jason, and then Anna, do you want to take a crack at that? And you can pass and do the next one if you want.
Well, we have a phone buddy, so I don't want to make her wait too long.
Okay. All right, so let's go to Jason and then to the phone buddy. Jason, hi, buddy.
Hi.
Speaking of phone buddies, you're a in-the-room buddy.
Yeah, hello.
Hey.
I think in one way of comparing it to 13 Ways Looking at a Blackbird is to think of they both have numbers, but in a way 20 takes the place of the blackbird, so that here we have, I've never counted how many times 20 appears in this poem, but I don't think it's 20 times.
But it might be 13, and that would be a
might
killer.
be,
Yeah. You are so smart, Jason. Can I just pause and say that?
If anyone needs a dissertation topic, I think
I mean,
we
seriously,
just found
every
one.
time Jason opens his effing mouth, there's a dissertation topic.
Okay, thanks.
What are we going to do with you? He's probably
thanks for
now he
joining
probably
us.
ruined it because he probably forgot what he was going to say.
No, I was late because I had a dissertation breakthrough and I had to write.
Oh, you shouldn't have come at all.
No, I had to.
Can we clap a dissertation breakthrough? Jason Zuska.
All right. Well, I think also I find this poem totally baffling because all the Barbara Guest poems usually to me have to do with visuality and light and sound, and here we have this number, but in my office hours I was actually talking back and forth for a long time about what 20 is, and I think that, in a sense, the poem fires up the reader to maybe take it to 20 iterations. It's left very open, and if someone could help me with castanets are on the fingers, right?
Yes.
And so
But they're a little like the flowers that she sees, so she's doing a little surrealism there.
right, and I think that to settle, to take the number 20, which is, I think, bigger than the mind can hold at once. Like, I think it's hard to, because if I think of Barbara Guest as a visual poet, to try to picture 20 objects simultaneously in my mind is more than my mind can do. Maybe there are people who can, but I can picture 6 objects instantly, but 20 exceeds my capacity to see simultaneously, except, I guess, for my fingers and toes.
That's how all of us humanists do math.
Exactly.
Fingers and
I
toes.
still, yeah.
Jason, I'm gonna
Yeah,
stop your brilliance because we're gonna go to the phone. But Jason, it's just, even when you walk in, you're like a walk-in. He's off stage and he's on stage and he says something brilliant. And I know this guy exactly. Anna can't believe you. All right, thank you, Jason, and Angie. Thank you both. Wow. Great question, great answers. This is what ModPo's rocking today. What are we gonna do?
Well, it's about to get even better because this has just been like the day of our favorite people calling. It's Mama Pope.
Ah, Mama Pope. All right, well, put Mama Pope on.
Good morning to all you beautiful people.
Oh, Joyce, how are you?
I'm good. I just wanted we were doing celebrations, and although I'm not married and I can't celebrate my anniversary, I can celebrate the first anniversary of the Meatball Fest, and I'm sorry that I can't be there with you.
Yeah, but you can't. You still can make meatballs. You can freeze them and ship them.
I'm gonna try it.
I don't see why not. I mean, just don't tell the post office what you're shipping.
I don't have to tell them it's frozen meatballs, do I?
No, I don't think so, unless you're
No.
crossing a border. For those of you who are not following this, Joyce Pope, who's the mom of Therese, who is a longtime community TA, came and visited us last year and joined us for a webcast and some events, and then treated us to a Mama Pope dinner, which had the homemade meatballs, and then she gave me a big bunch of them and oh boy, I dined out on that for a couple of days. Anyway,
the only other thing I want you to know is that the New York poets are one of my faves, even though before that Kerouac is now my buddy. But the Day Lady Died is one of my favorites because I really dig into it and understand some of the images he's portraying, and it's real to me because I've been to New York City a lot. So, and I'm born and raised in New York, upstate New York, so it means a lot to me.
That's cool. What town upstate?
Rome, New York.
Rome, of course. Yeah.
Yes,
I know where Rome is.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And in its heyday, it was a big Air Force
It was. Rome was a serious town. So was Syracuse and Utica, but these days, not so much.
Yeah. Well, listen, I
thanks,
said
Joyce.
I left you. I don't want to occupy all the time, and I thank you for all of your hard work, all of you guys. Okay,
Thank
because
you.
I love you dearly.
Thank
Okay,
you,
bye-bye.
Joyce. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Great. So we're gonna do final words.
Can I say something really quickly?
Yes, please.
Because there was a
Yep.
great comment from Alejandro on the discussion forum about
Alejandro Duarte.
especially how the Day Lady Died, which Mama Pope just reminded us of, shows us the way in which a lot of these New York School poets, as he puts it, wove the extraordinary into the fabric of the ordinary, into the normal. Such
And
a great
he asked a
description.
question. We won't answer it, but can you state? Is there a question?
Yeah,
there?
it's a great question. I mean, I think he's wondering kind of about the roots of that process of juxtaposing the normal with the extraordinary in New York School. Is it something these people invented? Can we trace it back to an earlier moment in American poetry?
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Alejandro. I'm going to go around and invite everybody to say a final word, a quick one. It can be something about the New York School or a poem that we didn't talk about. It can be looking forward to Chapter 9, which is happening soon. Whatever you would like. So let's start with Carlos, go around the table, then go to the Google Hangouts, then get Anna involved, and then maybe Mandana, who sets the record today for coming the distance, get her a microphone. So Carlos, final thought?
Sure. The New York School of Poets is one of my favorites, especially Frank O'Hara. I think they so successfully sort of talk to you. I mean, I feel like whenever you're reading a Frank O'Hara poem, it feels like he's speaking almost to you directly, like he was writing you a letter about his day.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the ways that they really succeed.
Yeah.
What I like about them.
Great, terrific. Thank you, Carlos, and good to see you. Lily?
I'm actually thinking Roshan asked me a question in my office hours about whether, similar to the question we got today about if the very specifically called out names of people and journals and places will affect how New York School poems will age, that is how we will continue to read them in the future, and thinking today about how, because they're so interested in capturing a moment, basically as soon as you write the New York School poem, it's kind of in that past already. So I don't think that it will affect how the poems age, but it might affect how we go on reading them, because as much as I love Emily Dickinson, she writes in such grand, big terms like possibility with a capital P and brain and thought and, dwelling, and it's refreshing to see people get at something that is so emotional and does feel so lasting in terms of emotion, but without using big, grandiose philosophical terms.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well put. Julia Block, your final thought?
Yeah, I just responded to James Ritter's comment on the discussion forum. James is one of our community TAs who wonders how aware the poets we study were or are that they were or are part of a movement in the way that we consider them. And it's such a great question and such a great way to study the poems, although I don't think it's the only way to study the poems. So I just want to put in a plug for one really great source on this question, which is a book by Maggie Nelson called Women, the New York School, and Other True Abstractions. And I've just posted a link to it on the discussion forums.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Caroline?
You don't refuse to breathe, do you?
That's your final word. I like that.
Yes.
And the answer is no, we don't, indeed. Thank you. Let's go to the Google Hangouts. Molly O'Neill in Los Angeles. Final thought?
Yeah, I like how the poets this week sort of step back a little bit and almost become a conduit for experience. So they're really receiving and then just passing it along to the reader. And I like that.
Yeah, well put. That's nice. Dave Poplar, final thought?
The first sentence from Some Trees is, "These are amazing, each joining a neighbor as though speech were a still performance." I love the concept of speech as a performance, and I think it's something to keep in mind as we go through the next weeks, and especially as we get to week 10, and it makes me really think of soliloquy, so that's just something to keep in mind.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. Angela Hume, a final thought?
Well, just reading reading this particular selection this week and these poems in juxtaposition, I've been thinking more about just the indebtedness of the New York Schoolers to modernism, and just kind of the inheritance of, thinking about the frame of the canvas, the frame of the page, of the image, poem as a kind of film montage almost, sort of the movement from image to image in time. Attention to image, line, color, the kind of surrealist aspect of so many of the images and the movement in the images. So I've just been, just kind of appreciating that relationship between New York Schoolers and...
I'm really glad you said that, Angie. That's great. It puts me in mind to say of ModPo generally that although some people think of ModPo functioning in 5 or 6 different ways, a general introduction to lots of different poets, a chronological survey that goes in lots of different directions, one of the sub-ideas of ModPo is that there's probably more continuity than discontinuity in the move from modernism to so-called postmodernism. And we're constantly looking back. And our syllabus does that. The Chapter 9 syllabus is full of instances of poems that are responding specifically. Or when you get to Amiri Baraka's Incident, which is a response to the Harlem Renaissance, specifically in County Cullen, there's a conversation going on with modernism beforehand, and this is a really important thing. So let's go to Mandana, and then Jason, and then Anna for final words. Yeah.
I'm thinking more about just New York as what it is. It's there's intimacy in New York. There's certainly a lot of distance and anonymity. It's both an icon and a very small town for those of us who live there. Your own community is definitely one that you might see in a very small town. And I also think about the fact that it's not Guadalajara, to go back to Ashbury. It's dirty and it's got a lot of flaws. It's not the perfect thing in the travel book. And I think it inspires us to write our own New York poetry. With the New York poetry, you can see yourself writing that and inserting yourself into your day-to-day and the things that you notice when you walk down the street or walk in your mall.
Yeah, I mean, I think what reader, or at least first reader of O'Hara, isn't inspired to get a pad and pencil or some kind of writing device and go walk? I mean, don't we all feel that way? We really do. And of course, Whitman causes that too much earlier. Uh-oh, Mandana wants. You want to say something else?
No, one final plug. We have the New York City meetup on Saturday, Halloween.
Speaking of New York, what time?
It's at 12:30 to 2 at the Grand Central Library. You can get there from Amtrak. You can get there. You can all come up from wherever
Philly,
you
yeah.
are. Yes, JFK, LaGuardia. So we'd love to see you.
That's cool. JFK. Jason, final thought?
I'm stuck on 20, but I want to plug in ModPo Plus Eileen Miles' poem 6, which is another fascinating number poem. And I was trying to count how many digits are in The Day Lady Died, and I keep finding more. I'm up to 18, but the balance. He doesn't get his balance, so those numbers are avoided, but we get a huge balance of kind of random numbers thrown in. So what numerals have to do with why these people are fascinated by numerals? I have no idea.
Thank you for that. Okay, just 2 shout-outs, and then, Anna Strong. Oh, I'm doing. Did I do this to you last year? I don't think so.
What
Right?
did I do to you, Al? Do we have some beef that I don't know about? What did I do to you?
You're fine.
I think it's about baseball.
No,
We're not
she has
even in
been.
it.
She has been behaving very well about baseball this morning.
It's hard for me. You have to know this.
Let's not get onto it, please.
I know we won't.
Julia's
Make Lily
trying to
mad.
instigate something. Do you have a final thought?
I do. I've been thinking, for many reasons, I've been thinking about this just like a lot in all of the very limited free brain space that I have these days, about how texts, like especially in this week about the Day Lady Died, create presence out of absence. How that we have this compulsion to remember and to find some way to do justice to the people who are no longer with us. And we see this first with Let Us Describe. We see it now with The Day Lady Died. And I want to fling us forward to plug Chronic Meanings, which is coming up soon.
Bob Perlman next week.
That we have this, we're moving more and more towards a way of memorializing, a way of remembering that that these poems do better justice to these people that are gone than any other type of text I've ever read, besides maybe what we're doing in Holocaust right now. So that's where my
to another course.
That's where my head's been at.
And then eventually Jackson McClough, Vocabulary for Peter Innisfree Moore, which takes the non-traditional elegy even further. Yeah, this is another sub-theme of ModPo. Thank you, Anna. So a couple shout-outs, and then we're gonna go out, as radio programs say, listening to Ashbury. First to Melody Sanchez, who's from Spain. She's 21 years old, and she did ModPo last year, and she found it very challenging. She skipped some of the poems because she couldn't quite get the modernism. She did watch all the videos, did both ModPo and ModPo Plus. She found it all absolutely fascinating. And now a year later, I realized that in spite of not understanding some of your explanations about the poems, I was unconsciously developing my skills to analyze them. So the first thing ModPo did for me was to teach me to love poetry, to understand it, and to appreciate the feeling of being lost. Speaking of just wandering around, she recalls a moment where she was confused by a Richard Wilbur poem that is now in ModPo Plus, Cottage Street, 1953, and she was interested in the way that Sylvia Plath is depicted, or not quite depicted, in that Wilbur poem. And then she remembers asking Amaris Kachansky, probably in an office hour, and Amaris helped her, and Sylvia Plath was in her mind for a whole year. Then she says, finally, some months ago, my university offered me an opportunity to get a scholarship and come to the United States to spend my last year as an undergraduate. And how could I say no? College in the United States. I couldn't think of a more convenient situation for improving my English. So here I am. She's writing from Oklahoma, studying from the University of Central Oklahoma, living a dream I could not have imagined a year ago. I'm so proud of having completed ModPo. This long post is just to say thank you and to congratulate you who are part of ModPo. I was one of them, and my experience demonstrates that ModPo wasn't just an online course someone can do for fun or curiosity, but the beginning of something much greater, in my case, a turning point in my life. I'd really love to be able to visit the Writer's House and to meet you all, and I hope I can do it before I go back to Spain, and that would be the perfect end of this dream. Long live ModPo. With love, Melody Sanchez. So congratulations, Melody. She's in Oklahoma, which is kind of a big bus ride to Philly, but come on, get on that bus. And then a shout out to Lauren Stafford Burrow. She was responding on a thread where I announced that proudly that ModPo was deemed by some ridiculous site to be the number 21 out of 50 all-time MOOCs, and it was based solely on registrations, which is, of course, absurd because most of the people who register for these courses don't take them. So it's kind of just ridiculous. And Lauren wrote in this comment thread in Facebook that enrollment obviously doesn't match, that it's a bad quantitator. I myself, she said, have signed up for MOOCs and never attended past day one, save for ModPo. And she says, in order to move the MOOC conversation into what humans need, how MOOCs feed our intellectual souls, and to better understand MOOCs' place in lifelong learning, it would be more helpful to look past the numbers and devote time to qualitative research, which has not been done. MOOCs have been MOOCified and quantified and, digital humanitiesified, all on the quantitative scale. She calls for qualitative research into participant motivations, expectations, intentions, and outcomes. Lauren Stafford Burrow, you go. We need that. We're going to go out listening to John Ashbery read Just Walking Around.
Can I make two?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to invite everyone to, if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, the meetup is, again, Saturday, Halloween, 11 a.m., and also Thursday evening at 8 p.m., I'm having a special office hour, again, to discuss teaching. Last night's hour was really a really great discussion, so please come again if you're interested in talking about teaching poetry, students, teachers, anyone. It was a great discussion.
That's great. And once again, Angie and Caroline are our first ever teaching fellows, and they're really working with Erica and Julia to make the teaching part of this a very robust aspect. So thank you both, and thank you, Angie. Brian Mandana for coming a long way, Andrea as usual, Michael, CJ, Susan, Eric, others, Dave Poplar, Molly, Angie, Carlos, Lily, Julia, Caroline, thank you all so much. We leave you with John Ashbery performing Just Walking Around. May you walk around.
It's called Just Walking Around.
There's that laughter.
What name do I have for you? Certainly there is no name for you in the sense that the stars have names that somehow fit them. Just walking around, an object of curiosity to some. but you are too preoccupied by the secret smudge in the back of your soul to say much and wander around, smiling to yourself and others. It gets to be kind of lonely, but at the same time off-putting, counterproductive, as you realize once again that the longest way is the most efficient way, the one that looped among islands, and you always seemed to be traveling in a circle. And now that the end is near, the segments of the trip swing open like an orange. There is light in there, and mystery, and food. Come see it. Come not for me, but it. But if I am still there, grant that we may see each other.
Come not for me, but it. Come not for the poet, but the poem. We have the poems, as Sid Corman would say. You know, if you're here, I'm here too, always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was really fun, non-somnambulistic webcast. We're very pleased about that. We'll do another non-somnambulistic webcast in a week. Good luck finishing up your essays on O'Hara. We're really excited about week 8, chapter 9.1. It's hard. It's hard. I am redoing right now a 3-part introduction to week 9, so it's going to be a totally new intro. I hope to make it clearer than it used to be, so stay tuned for all that. Thank you again. And Chris Martin and Zach Cardiner, who do this amazing, no other MOOC does this. Is there another MOOC that does this, truly interactive? Please call us 512-9. Oh, look, there's Chris. 512-95 ModPo. Leave us a voicemail, and we'll see you soon. Take care.